YouTube, how's it going? Welcome back to AJ's Garage. Thank you guys for tuning in and thank you for watching. I also just want to say thank you to some new subscribers. I believe we are at 142 now. So hope you guys continue to like the content. But let's get started with this one. It's going to be part 3 on the instrument cluster repair series. We are going to be trying to get these backup lights to engage. In the last video, I realized that we didn't even have bulbs in there. But we're gonna have to take a look at the neutral safety switch, so let's get started.
Happy Halloween! Subscribe and like.
So now it's time to revisit the taillight wiring harness from the last video, or the last instrument cluster video. Before I do that though, I want to show you guys this. It's a complete diagram for my truck, 1970 F-Series trucks from classiccarwiring.com. I found out about this 4 or 5 months ago, finally decided to order one. Really nice quality, very clear. Describes all the colors and the wires down here and the key. But so far it's definitely helped a lot in tracing down wires, finding out what they go to. So if you guys need some help, this is definitely a good tool to have. Now back to the harness. So this is a harness from the junkyard. It's not the original one that I had in my truck before. Decided to replace it because I wasn't sure about these connectors, these female connectors. Now, this harness has 2, so that leads me to believe that those are to the lights for the license plate. I just kind of fixed up a few areas that this had. I'll insert some pictures of what was wrong with it. But I'm just not really happy, and of course this wasn't meant to be a permanent solution. So what I'm going to do today is give soldering a try. I found a video on YouTube, described very thoroughly, definitely had some tricks to it, but didn't seem that hard. So we're going to give it a try on this harness. So here we are with the finished product. It really wasn't too difficult. Took me about 30 to 45 minutes just for these 2 ends here, and then these 2 on this side. On this end here I used some thicker, I guess, heat shrink tubing when I realized that it would shrink down just enough to tie the wires together. On this end here I used one of these smaller ones like this one first, and then the larger one and right over that. But pretty happy with how it turned out. It should definitely last a lot longer. I also just used some electrical wire, wrapped it around the harness with the zip tie just to kind of keep it secure. And let's get it back in the truck. Another one of the things I needed to take a look at was this neutral safety switch. If you guys remember from my last instrument cluster video, my backup lights didn't work. When I put bulbs in there, I realized that I was missing bulbs, didn't even have them in there. But I took this off today and everything looks good. It still slides over freely and moves well. Nothing's wrong with the wiring or the connector. Prior to removing this, I actually had ordered this transmission selector pin. Just in case maybe the one I had might have been bent or damaged, and realized that when I removed the neutral safety switch that this was completely missing. So we just need to drop the column a little bit and get this installed, and that should solve the issue. Looking at the steering column, it's not super clear, and I'll give you guys a better look when I pull it out, but that little pin sits in this little gap right here. And of course, this is the bolt hole for the neutral safety switch. So I'm going to try to get away with removing the column without completely disassembling the rag joint that goes to the steering box. Again, I've never done this before, so we're going to learn along the way, but I'm assuming we need to remove this. And there's one on the inside of the firewall along with this right here. So let's get started. Going over the location of the transmission pin. Like I mentioned before, that I thought it was just missing, but it looks like it's just broken off. So we're just going to pop this one off, replace it with that new one, and get the column back on the truck. Alrighty guys, steering column is back in the truck. Cleaned it up just a little bit before I put it back in. If you notice, there was some white overspray on it, but looks a lot cleaner now. Of course, later down the road, I'm gonna pull it out again and repaint it. So at that time, I'll go into depth on how to remove it and the steps to remove the steering column. But as you can tell, there is the transmission selector pin along with the neutral safety switch. So I was reading on these, there is some adjustment. When you shift, the pin there will move over to the right, allowing that other spring-loaded pin to slide over and make contact, and that's what sends signal to the backup lights to light up. So there is some adjustment. So let's take a look and see where it's currently at and go from there. Alrighty guys, so about after test number 3, I realized that I wasn't going to be able to get the lights to engage with the adjustment, so I just started doing it manually and wasn't able to get it to work correctly. And then I remembered that I had slightly bent the transmission shift linkage. When I got the transmission rebuilt and put it back in, I just couldn't get it to line up. So I want to say that's going to be the problem, so I'm out here at Turner's today. We're going to see if we can find a shift linkage and hopefully that fixes the problem. So I believe we have a winner. I walked the whole yard just because I like taking my time, and usually I'll find some things that I've overlooked. So it's kind of hard with the lighting there, but as you can see, that linkage piece right there goes down to the transmission and up to the steering column right there. So we're gonna have them take this off and see if this fixes it. Alrighty guys, so we're back from the junkyard and I picked up a few extra things. Some exhaust hanger brackets. Mine's actually missing these, so this one goes up by the cab and this one's toward the rear of the truck. I do just have to bend it back in shape. Some wiring. This is actually the wiring to the horn. Goes to the voltage regulator and then to both horns. Missing that. And then the main piece, of course, was the transmission shift linkage. It's got a few little bends in it in certain areas, but I'll pull mine out and have you guys take a look at it. So here I have the linkage from the parts truck at the junkyard all cleaned up. I cleaned up the threads just a little bit, and as you can tell, there's a slight bend here. There's also a bend here, but this end goes down to the transmission. This top end goes to the steering column. This is the one that was in my truck. Quite a big difference. Like I had mentioned, for some reason, I still don't remember why, it wouldn't line up correctly. Maybe I just needed to adjust it down on this end, but I bent it in order to get it to fit. So I think that's the reason why I can't get the reverse lights to engage correctly. So we're gonna replace it with the parts one. Also, what I noticed is on the parts truck at Turner's, down on the transmission lever, it had a little grommet, one that looked like one of these. This is just a shift linkage bushing kit, I guess. It's for Ford and GM vehicles. These orange ones don't look correct. These clear ones do, so we're gonna give one of those a try. And then I also picked up these assorted wire grommets. I'm gonna try putting one up on the steering column side. That way it just feels a lot more responsive and it's a lot tighter. So hopefully that engages the lights correctly. Shift linkage is in the truck. Obviously not this one. This is the one that came out of my truck, but I realized why it was bent. So when I pulled it out of the truck to get the transmission rebuilt, excuse my dog, this end went down to the transmission. Well, that's backwards. This end goes up to the steering column, which I realized when I just happened to look back at a picture of the truck I pulled the shift linkage off from at Turner's. So got it put on correctly, got it to line up. Now let's see if the backup lights engage.